Yeah, so welcome back to another CG Spectrum stream. I'm your streamer today, I'm Bryan Bentley. So we're going to be doing some more stuff in Houdini with some cloth draping, and then if I'm feeling lucky or if I'm feeling froggy, I'll send this over to Zbrush for detailing and show you some ways that we can take this kind of crazy geometry that's it's great for simulation, not really good for animation, deformation, things like that. Or it's good for deformation, but it's not good to sculpt on. So this isn't going to subdivide very well and give you predictable sculpting results. But I'll show you how you can spit that out into ZBrush and do some pretty cool stuff with polygroups and Z-remesher. So, but for now, what I want to do is I want to give this lady a top. So the concept I'm working off of, she's kind of like this blacksmith warrior lady. It's actually the concept that we use in our first advanced modeling class in ZBrush. So I'm just taking it a different way. So we can see what the possibilities are. So I want to give this. I want to give her a tunic. So it's like a big leather apron that comes down to about her ankles, and then it's got like a collar on it that comes up like this. So some things that I have done between the streams is I did add some UVs to this. So if I click on this UV layout here, it'll go back to my unsimmed pants, and if I go to UV layout, so that's my UV layout, and that travels all the way down through into here. So even if I go to this color, right, I even got that UV layout. So the great thing about UVs in Houdini are they're mildly decoupled from the surface. So whatever the surface is doing, the UVs don't really care. They're just going to follow along for the ride. So that's what's really great about this kind of workflow is you're like modeling and UVing all at the same time, which is really cool. Like each one of these has their own, generates these patches, these planar patch from curves, and these planar patches. They all generate their own UVs. So all you have to do is just kind of rearrange them and put them where they need to go. The other thing I did is I hooked up this thing called a decon, which is density. So I've basically copied this, so this 0.01, and I've copied it all over wherever I have a planar patch. So I have a planar patch here, and so we can see there's a ch ... decon ... density. So I'm controlling all the densities of all my sections of cloth all at the same time. So that's really good. And then just for visualization, I put some color on this. I put some color on my collider, and then I merge them together just so I can get a good idea of what everything looks like all together. So that's what I did in the network. In the Vellum drape node, I've clicked this save to disk, and I've saved out a version of these shorts into just what's called a bgo.sc file. So that's that's Houdini's native file format, and it's compressed, so it's like really small. It's really easy to read in. So eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to spit this out. So this stuff here, this is kind of for visualization. This is just so I can see what's kind of going on, and so this is I can see what's going on. So eventually, I'm going to want to spit this out to its own file. So what I'm going to do is, generally what we'll do is we'll just put a null down, and I want to put this down as we'll say shorts. HRTS for shorts. There's something going wrong with my my wireless keyboard. My shift button has broken, so I can't type Shift O for some reason. I don't know what's going on. I'll have to fix it eventually. But so right now we have this. We have our shorts, and inside of our shorts we have all this data in here. And all this came from this Vellum drape. So Houdini works almost exclusively on point attributes, so information that is on the points. If you send a point to a simulation, it wants to know how heavy that point is, how much it's going to resist air, all this other stuff, stiffness, all this stuff. And it's going to put that information on those points. Now, I don't really need that information, and I don't want to carry it around with me. I'm trying to keep my pipeline as light as possible. So I'm going to actually get rid of almost all of that, right? So I'm going to say I'm going to do a clean node. And so what a clean node does is it's kind of like a nuclear bomb. So what I can do is I can say remove attributes and remove groups. And so now it basically rips away everything. So now I just have my points, right? I have my points, I have my vertices, and I have my primitives. Now, I do want to keep some of those attributes. Like, I want to keep my UV data from here. So I want to keep my UV. So I'm going to do, on my remove attributes, I'm going to do an upward caret. So that's shift and over 6. And I'm going to do UV. So that should keep so there's my UV data now there. And there was one other detail attribute that I need to keep. So that was VM cusp angle. So I want to keep that as well. So I want to keep VM cusp VM underscore cusp angle. I think that's right. Yeah, VM cusp angle. Now that's for visualization in Houdini, but I like to keep that around. So my UVs, my VM cusp angle. I don't want to keep anything else. I don't want to keep color or mass or any of that stuff. I just want the model and the UVs. So model and UVs. So that's my shorts. The other thing I think I'm going to do is I have this file here, and actually this started as a file. I'm going to put this off in its own kind of section. I'm going to put it off in its own geometry group. So I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm going to come back out to my object level, and I'm going to call this shorts. Okay. And the other thing, I'm going to make a new geometry context, so tab geometry. And I know you can't really see my drop down, so I'm pressing tab, I'm typing in geometry, I'm going to drop in there, and I'm just going to Control V that file back into here. Yeah. So we'll go back out, and I'll call this call for collider. Okay, so just doing some housekeeping real quick. So let's go back into shorts. So instead of this file, I want to do an object merge. So I basically want to merge the call object into this object. So I'm going to do a object merge, and I'm going to point to that object. So my object 1, I'm going to click this little button here, and I'm going to go all the way up. I'm going to go to call, and I want to rewire that from that to that. And so now everything should stay the same, because I'm just moving that data around just a little bit. So there's my color, yeah. Right, so there's just my shorts, and there's my call. All right, great. So, so I want to make sure my viewer is on my shorts. So I'm going to come over to, I'm going to go back to my object. So now I have my shorts in a context, and I have my collision stuff in a context. Great. So this allows us to keep things very organized and separate. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new geometry, and so now we're going to start on the tunic. So I'm going to call this tunic. I'm popping that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is same thing as I did before. So now I actually want the tunic to not hit her body, but I want it to hit these shorts. Okay, so I'm going to bring in both of these as collision objects. So I'm going to do, and once again, object merge. And in my object merge, I'm I'm going to go grab that object. So I'm going to go grab my collision, accept. So that's in there now, and then I can add another part. So I can say, now grab my shorts. So this is actually merging both of these together. So now these are one thing. Like this is going to be one thing for my objects to collide against. I could merge these. I could bring these in separately and use a merge node if I wanted to. So I could also do Alt, and let's see, this one I can remove. I'm going to say enable, turn off the shorts, and this one I'll turn off the enable of the body. And let's go up here to hide other objects. So we have shorts, we have body, and we can merge these together inside here. So very flexible. And I think I might want to do this because I might want to like smooth my body, but not my shorts. So it gives me that flexibility. So that's good. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do pretty much exactly what we did before. So I'm going to draw my panels. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. I think what I'm going to deviate a little bit. I want to do something a little special. I want to do something where like the tunic is kind of like almost like a karate gi. I think I'm going to try. So I want this section to kind of come across and maybe attach over here, and then I want this one to kind of come underneath and attach over there. I don't know if I'll be able to pull that off, but maybe we'll see. If not, I'll go back to the regular, the regular kind of slip over the shoulders. Okay, so yeah, so let's get to it. So I'm going to come into my front view. Okay. And I'm going to start drawing this out. So I'm going to draw out the front first, and then I'm going to draw out the back. So I'm going to start with a curve, just like we did before. And I'm going to template this so I can see it. I'll come to my curve. All right. So I want the shoulder to be a bit shallow. So I'm going to press Enter. And I'm going to start about here. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And then there's my turn. And then I'm going to do my shoulder line. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be my arm. Or actually, let's back up. Back up one more. I want a little bit more curve in there. Yeah, there we go. And just like our shorts, we want enough room to get behind the body. And yeah, we'll just kind of move down here. I'm going to go about to where the belly button is here. So I'm going to come down like this. And I'll do a small curve here. So I'm going to do here, 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 and here, and then I'm going to go straight down. Then I'll come over, and then all the way back up to the top. All right, and Shift and right click to finish. Okay, so that's going to be that front part. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and make the entire front part, and then we'll make the back part. Now, I'm kind of thinking ahead here. The concept has a kind of a constant pattern that goes over the entire front and back. So generally what I would do is I would make these two patches like I did with the pants. I would make two patches. I would make this patch and I would make that patch, and I would sew them in the middle. Now what that's going to do is it's going to give me a break in the middle of my UV. And unless those UVs are perfectly lined up, I'm going to get a break in my texture pattern in the front of my character. So I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to set up one side, and then I will mirror the polygon or the edges, and yeah, I'll mirror the polygon, and then build the patch out of that. So don't really need this anymore. I kind of know where everything is. I'm going to drop my geometry spreadsheet just so I get some more room. I'll scoot this over. All right, let's go back to perspective view. Okay, so that's the front of my tunic, like that. And yeah, so let's do that mirroring. Yeah, let's do that mirroring now, I think. Do I want to do that now? This is the fun thing about Houdini, is like you can make these decisions and you can change them later. So let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna mirror this now. I'm gonna mirror this right now. So I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna clip and mirror this. So one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab these points and I'm just gonna immediately truck down a edit SOP. So that's gonna go there. I'm gonna pull these past the midpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this middle so I know that everything is perfectly in the middle, and then I'm going to mirror everything just so I know that everything lines up. So that should work pretty well. All right, so this is over. So I'm going to do a clip. So this is my clip. Press enter. And I'm going to move this guy over this way. And I'm going to say clip primitives below. Okay, so I'm going to take this, my X, I want to point straight out X and nowhere in Y. So this is before my clip, this is after my clip. Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm going to mirror this. So I'm going to say mirror. So now I get this perfectly mirrored line. So now this is great because whatever I do in this edit will get mirrored over to the other side. So if I grab this edit and I go in my selection tool, grab this guy, press T, right, that's going to get mirrored over to the other side. So that'll be really good for my purposes to edit both sides at one time. So that's nice. So I can put things above this edit, I can put things below this edit, and anything below the clip in the mirror is going to get mirrored over to the other side. So that's quite nice. It's quite nice. All right. Let's see. All right. So for my mirror, so just like I did before, I am going to do an ends. And I'm going to take my closed U to unroll with shared points. So that'll take that all the way down to being just a line around the outside. Now I do have this one in the middle, and I don't think that's gonna give me too much bother, but we'll see. We'll deal with that if I have to get to it. When I get to it, yes. Okay, so let me just run a fuse on this to fuse any lines that need fuse any points that need to go there, and let's just run that plain air patch from curve. See what I get. So PP plain air patch from curves. Plug that in. Yeah, so that's working. This is crazy because there's not enough stuff here. So if I turn on my resample curves, then I'll get this, and everything will get all gooey. Now we can fix that up here with our poly cut. Yeah. So we're gonna go here. After our fuse, I'm gonna do my poly cutting here. I could possibly do my poly cutting up here. Let's try that. Let's try both. Let's try to put the poly cut. I'm gonna put it after the edit, but before the clip and mirror, and those are pretty important. So I'm gonna make those green. And these are also pretty important, so I'll make them a darker green. Okay, so I'm going to put go to this edit. So I'll put a poly cut where I need it here, and we'll see if that stuff mirrors over. Okay, so I'm going to do tab poly cut. So remember, change this from strategy remove to cut, and I'm going to select the parts that I want to cut. So I want these two. I'm gonna hold down shift. I want this one and this one. So I want this to be a curve. I want this to be a straight line. I want that to be a curve into there. Actually, I probably want this to be a straight line as well. I want this to be a straight line as well. This is gonna curve. That'll be a straight line. Yeah. Yeah. So press enter, and I'll get those lines. See what this does. That's what it gives me. It's good. The clip, mirror, the ends. Ooh, that's ugly. That's ugly. Okay, so we probably have to do the polycut after the mirror then. Not a problem. Not a problem. This is what I love about Houdini. Completely non-destructive. That didn't work. You can just get rid of it and move somewhere else. So let's do this. Let's do this after the ends that I did, like I did before. So we're gonna do this again. Poly cut, and plug this in here, and go to cut. Grab these. So once again, I wanted those, these, this guy, that guy, these guys, and these guys. Ooh, I don't want that middle one. I want to leave that alone. Okay, so let's try that one more time. Forgot to press enter. I always forget to press enter. And that guy, and that guy. These guys, these two. All right, great. So let's see. I have 2 polygons, 2 primitives. Okay, so how I check to see if this is working is I'll usually go to primitives mode and see what I'm able to select. Right, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's feeling good. That's feeling good. Yeah, it's feeling all right. Good. So I have all these polygons kind of split up. This guy is connected. Looks like it's connected to both of these two. So let's run a polycut. Let's put that polycut in as well. I'm just gonna hold down Shift, press enter, and then go back to my selection and primitives. Yeah, so I have this one primitive in the middle now. So I could get rid of that with a blast, or I could just leave it there. Once again, it's really malleable. So we can, we can do what we like. Okay, so let's go back into our fuse, and let's go back into our, so now our resample curves is working quite nicely. So let's resample those to subdivision curves and give ourselves some resolution. Yeah, that's feeling good. That's feeling really good. This is a little sharp. So let's see what we get here. Let's go back to our points. So I'm gonna do, press T and just move this down a little bit. So it's a little bit more flush with that edge. So we get like a nice kind of pull in. So we're not getting, like I'm liking this. This is nice. This is nice. All this is nice and smooth. That's working well. Okay, good. Fantastic. All right, so maybe 0.05 or 0.02 is too much. I think 0.05, maybe 0.025. Yeah, that's a good starting point. So once again, we're trying to work very procedurally. We build our front, we mirror it, and then we're solving problems as we go along, which is what I like. I like doing that. I like solving problems. All right, let's move this. Let's move this guy over. Okay, so let's grab that. All right. So this whole thing needs to come forward, obviously. So I'm going to put a transform behind this. And this transform, I'm going to scoot forward. So just looking at this, I feel like those, like these armholes, are just a little bit too low for my liking. So I'm going to come back to my edit and press my S, grab those, press T, and now I can make those a little bit higher. Let's do front view. Yeah, so that all can come up and be a little bit higher. I want it to tuck very close under her arms. And let's just go back to this poly mirror so we can clearly see what we're working on. All right. Pull this guy up just a bit and over just a bit. Like, I'm still new to these live streams, so just sitting here fiddling while people are watching, or possibly while people are watching, makes me so nervous. So you'll have to forgive me on that. Okay, all right, that's enough. That's enough for that. All right. Yeah, it's feeling pretty good. It's feeling pretty good. Okay. So now I want to make sure that my seams are turned on. So I'm going to say seam groups, and for this one, I might just turn on patch name. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I might be able to use that down the line. So we'll call this tunic front. Okay. So, just like we did before, I know that I have all this stuff figured out. I'm just going to copy it. So I'm going to do Shift L to kind of lay these out. Nice. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to make my tunic back. So my tunic back is going to look very similar, but it's just going to go just kind of straight across, and the neckline won't be as deep. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold down Alt and just drag all this stuff over to the side. So that'll make me a brand new curve. Okay, so with this curve, I'm going to be working on my back. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this guy around, and I'm going to snap to it, because it's a good template. So I'm going to keep this guy around. I'm going to template this. And then I'm going to come back to I'm going to do my back view now. I can do it from my front view, but you know, I'm a stickler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to template that. I'm going to make another curve, and I'm just going to trace that curve. So I'm going to turn on my point snapping. It's over here, and so now you can see this is lit up. So, and it still lights up. So I'm going to do basically the same, almost the same thing. So I'll go here, 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 here. And there are like dozens of ways to do this. So yeah, let's do that, and then we'll come down to kind of like a point here. We'll close that off. Shift. So I want this to be a little bit more shallow. So that will come, and actually because this edit is kind of tied to this guy, I'm going to make a new edit for myself. So I'm going to go to my selection, and I'm going to grab these guys here, and I'll press T, and that should automatically make me a new edit. Yeah, there it is. So there's that new edit. So I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to press Y to kind of make it a little bit more shallow. Bring that up. So that's the back, And I think in my other edit, I also did this overshoot as well. So I'm gonna press S, go back to here, and T, and do this overshoot like that. All right. So now we plug this into my clip. So my clip is that, so I can untemplate this guy, and I'm gonna retemplate this guy. Yeah. So there's my edit, there's my clip, there's my mirror. Now my ends is going to be the same, and my polycut is probably going to be different. So in my polycut, let's just get rid of all this stuff and cut some new stuff. So delete, enter, come here. So I want these guys cut. That's my curve. I want that cut. These cut. These are going to get cut. And this really isn't going to get sewn to anything, so I think I'll just leave that as one big seam. And then I think I ended up cutting this in my other one as well. So I'll press enter. It's my fuse. So there's my remesh, and I'll just have to edit my, so instead of going forwards, this guy is going to go backwards. So come into here, press enter, and move it backwards, like so. Right, so we're going to call this one Tunic Front. And this one, oh, this is just my transform, sorry. Transform, and this is going to be Tunic Back. And rename this to Transform. All right, so let's merge these together. And I can already tell these wings are going to be way too big. They're like twice her size, so we can deal with those as well. But I'm liking what I'm seeing. Like, I feel like this one is a little bit too long, so that's probably, like, this whole thing is probably going to have to come up to match that side. And actually, I think I can do that right now. So let's go back into our front view. And I'm going to template my front tunic and view my back tunic here. Yeah, that's way too short. So I'm going to have to come back up to my little edit up here and do selection. Grab these and press T and have those move up so that they're in the same spot. Press S, and maybe I'll bring these guys in a bit as well, just like I did before. Right, so that's working. Okay, good. So wanted to make sure that these two were the same length, or else I was going to have problem. I'm going to have problems later. Okay, so that's our tunic. Let's just throw a cloth or a vellum solver on here and see what we get. So see if we can just get it to hit the floor or fall, and then we'll work on wrapping that around our character. I still feel like that maybe this is too low, but that'll be hard. It'll be easier to tell once we get it on the character. Okay, so don't need this stuff anymore. We'll make these. We'll make this that same green color, so I know those are important. All right, so let's do. I'm gonna do a. About chording. What about crossing? Crossing now. Oh, I don't. YG, I don't get the. I don't get the question. Can you rephrase the question for me, and I'll try to address it. Okay. The other thing that I want to do. Oh, the other thing I'm seeing is both these guys are facing the same way, right? I want this one to face backwards and this one to face forwards. So before I do that transform, I'm just going to do a reverse here. And so now both of these should be facing the right direction now. So this guy's light gray is facing out, light gray is facing out, dark bluish gray is facing in, bluish gray is facing in. Okay. So we're gonna do what do we need now? Oh yeah, Vellum Constraints. So V, C, C, Vellum, configure, cloth. So we're gonna plug that into there. And the next thing we need is a Vellum drape. V, D, Vellum drape. And all three of these are gonna plug in like so. All right. So let's see what we get. Awesome. Cloth is falling. All right. So let's start to do. So let's bring in. Actually, let's do our sewing. Yeah, let's do our stitching. Let's do our stitching now. Tunic's a little bit simpler than the shorts. But we might get into some being able to like shrink different parts of your cloth. We'll see. See how much programming I want to do today. All right. Okay. Vellum drape. Weld additional seams. And so this is a trick that I found. I always found when I did my. Let me make sure that my seam groups are on in these guys. Let's add these. Let's color these as well. Make these pink. Yeah, so my patch name and my seams are both on both of these. So I found that when I would go to add these extra welded seams in, when I would click this button, I get this bonkers, I get this, like, I can see all of my constraint geometry. I don't want that. I just want to see my, cloth. So one trick I found is if I put a null like right here in between, because this is my cloth, these are my constraints, this is my collision object. If I put a null just between my constraints and my collision or my solver, it'll go to the constraints instead of going all the way up to. It'll go to the null instead of all the way going all the way up to the constraints. If that makes sense. So I'm gonna put a null here. And if you were sharp, you probably caught it on the shorts as well. Oops. That goes there. That goes there. So now, when I go to say, when I go to grab this group, so it's not giving me all that crazy geometry anymore. So I'm going to say select geometry groups, and I'm still in point mode, so I'm going to sew front to back. So this, enter. This guy. And I'm just going to go work my way around. So, another one. Two more. And last one. Way less seams than the pants. Okay, so let's chuck our collision object in here. So that's going to be this guy's up here. And let's run this and see what we get. Yeah, as I suspected, like this is way, way too big. This is very, very large for this character. But we got viable cloth, which is good. Which is exactly what we want. Okay, great. So now we can just go into our tailoring phase. So I'm going to come into, I'm just going to go to my front, just like I did before. So I'm going to keep this templated so I can see it. Go to my edit, press S, press T. Now, if I'm on this edit, it's not going to keep making new edit nodes, so that's good. So I'm going to bring this. So I'm going to bring this way in. I'm going to turn off my point snap as well. Okay, so I'm going to template this and come over to my other edit, and I'll do the same thing. So press S, T, and we'll bring that in as well. So this might be too far, but we'll see. Okay, so now all that updates. So that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. I would like it to be a little bit more form-fitting. So let's see. Where do I want? So now I have to. Now you have to start asking yourself. All right, where do I need to start removing cloth? Like this is too much cloth here. So, but there's enough cloth here. So one thing we could do, so we could add darts like we did before. So I could add a dart back here that goes up to this shoulder blade, because this is looks about where it starts to get a little loose. I could add a dart that comes down here. I could also possibly add a dart in here, and that would remove some cloth in the middle there. I can also just kind of try to artificially shrink see what it gives me. So let's try that. That's just a kind of cheat technique that we can use if we need to. So what I can do is on my cloth constraints, I can come down to wrestling scale. So let's put this to like 0.95. Like this goes this goes a really, really long way when you're simulating. So be careful. So let's see. So we should see this whole thing like shrink a little bit. Let's just do 0.5 just to make sure it's working. Oh no, wait, that's stiffness. Sorry, that's my stiffness. I want my that's my stretch. That's my bend. Yeah. I want this on my stretch. So if I put this down to like 0.2, you should see this whole thing like collapse, because all those rest links are trying to be 0.2% of what they were, which is nothing. So I know it's working now. So let's do 0.9. Okay, so that's starting to pull in a little bit overall. Like this is kind of starting to cut in because I don't have the geometry, and this is happening immediately. So I'd much rather fix this with kind of with tailoring than with shrinking of the cloth. Or I can try to do the shrinking of my cloth in a more kind of controlled manner. Like I can do the shrinking just like in this section and whatnot. So, let's see. Yeah, so we'll put this back in 1. So, got some questions. Great stream. First time seeing the Houdini workflow in cloth. What are the main pros and cons of using it instead of Marvelous? That's a really good question. The pros of using Houdini over Marvelous is Houdini is very pipeline friendly. Don't get me wrong, I love Marvelous Designer. It is amazing. It's an amazing piece of software. But you do have to, like, it's for pay. You do have to buy it. You have to spend that money to learn something new. You can do everything I'm doing here in Houdini Apprentice, and like 100% of the things I'm doing right now you can do in Houdini Apprentice. So a lot of times in production, like if you're working in a production, especially if you're working for smaller production studios, maybe they don't have the budget to buy a Marvelous Designer. Maybe they don't have the budget to buy Marvelous Designer and Houdini. Maybe you have to figure out a way to do this type of work in Houdini. Maybe you have to figure out a way to do it in Blender. So the pro of Houdini, like I said, is it's very malleable. It can do almost anything you can think of. It just takes a little bit more work because it's not a dedicated cloth solver. Now that pro is also its con. Like it's not a dedicated cloth solver. You have to work a little bit hard to make things look good and like look like cloth. Whereas in Marvelous Designer, like that's what it does. It is a cloth simulation machine. That's what it does. That's all it does. You can't rig in it. You can't model anything other than cloth in it, right? That's all it does. So because it's so dedicated, it's very streamlined and it's very it does that one thing really, really well. So and you'll see this with a lot of programs. There's like if you compare like something like Maya, like retopologizing in Maya is a little bit more tedious than retopologizing in something like Topogun or 3D Coat. Those things are designed to do that one thing, whereas Maya is designed to do a lot of things. So that's the biggest difference. Underneath the hood, it's pretty much all the same math and all the same kind of ideas. Like what we're about to see in Marvelous Designer, making darts is way easier than in Houdini. But if you don't have Marvelous Designer and you only have Houdini, like this is the way that you need to go. Okay, very good question. Really good question. Yeah, dark magic. Yes, that is. A lot of people call Houdini dark magic. It's pretty funny. Okay, so let's see. This is okay. Let's run this out and let it settle, just so I can have a good look at it. What's going on? All right. So I want to remove cloth from this area here. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to try some darts, some internal darts. Now these are kind of tricky to do. I think they're tricky for even like a person who does cloth. So who does like real cloth, like darts are strange. So what I want to do is I think I want to put one on the back. I think I'm going to put two on the back. I'm going to put one that goes like, this is the shoulder blade. I'm going to put one that goes down like this. And so this is going to be a little bit different than the darts we did in the pants. Like the darts we did in the pants were just kind of like triangles, right? That came up like this. But the problem is, in this case, my waist fits and my bust fits. It's the stomach part that I'm having the problem with. Like this is too loose. So this fits and this fits. So I need to take just cloth out of this area and not here and not here. So we're gonna do that with some internal darts. All right. So we're gonna do those right before we plug into this planar patch here. Okay. So this is one of those things where it's like, this is where Marvelous Designer has Houdini, hands down. It's a little bit of a it's a little bit of a hike to get Houdini to do internal darts. Hopefully, in some of the next iterations of these, they'll make it a little bit easier. But right now, it's a bit of a mission. Okay, so we're gonna start with. What am I still visualizing? Ah, there we go. That's what I'm still visualizing. Let's turn that off. I do that all the time. I just leave stuff on accident. So I'm going to do my dart the same way as I did my pants dart. And that's going to be, I'm going to start with a circle. because I can take my circle and I can make it polygons, and for this one I'm going to do four sides. Okay, and I'm going to take this, I'm going to put a transform. I'm going to put a transform under this so I can move it around. So I want to tilt this 45 degrees, maybe 90 degrees. Yeah, 90 degrees, and I'm going to move it and place it where I need to put it, where it needs to go. So press Y a few times, can shrink this down, and shrink this down. And I'm learning from my mistakes as I go. I tend to always make my darts way too big when I first start. I want to make them really way too big. So what this is going to be is this is going to turn into a hole in this piece of fabric. And this is going to get sewn to this, and this is going to get sewn to this. So basically I'm removing fabric from this area, and it's going to pull fabric in this way and out that way. Okay, so the cool thing about this is if I take and just merge these two guys together, if I just merge these together, okay, and I plug those into my planar patch. Now it's kind of hard to see it, but you can kind of see that triangle there. Now, what's happening is I have this resample curve. So if I turn this off, you can really see it. It's like right there. So what I need to do basically the same thing to my dart as I did to my outside lines. So I could run a cut. There's also a tool that will just basically slice every single line, and that's called convert line. So if I put down a convert line, so now we can kind of see, you can see the dart like right there. It's kind of hard to see because there are all the triangles around it, but it is there. It's right there. Okay, so that's one dart. So I can actually just mirror this as well. Let's plug that in. So now I have both these darts in here on the same plane. Now I may have to kind of move this mirroring around a bit. I may have to just build everything on one side and then mirror the whole thing over and like cut it and mirror it and then weld it back together. But we'll see. This is the great thing about Houdini, and that's one of the other pros about Houdini is it's very procedural. Marvelous is not very procedural. Like if you break something or if you mess something up, like it's really hard. Like if you put a dart in the wrong spot, it's kind of difficult to get rid of it. Like you have to select the points and delete them and then move everything back around. With Houdini, if I put these dart in the wrong spot, I can just move it here. Right? I can move it around here. Or if I don't want the dart at all, I can just plug that in and I just bypass this whole piece. So it's very malleable. It's very atomic, which is really nice. Okay. So we need to basically we need to be able to clear out this geometry, and I had the hardest time trying to figure out how to do this. They show it very, very quickly in one of the training. One of Houdini's training bits on Vimeo, but it was so fast I couldn't figure out like what they were doing. So what I need to do is I need to use something called winding order, and like if I can get this to work, it'll be a miracle. But if it doesn't work, then once again, like Houdini's great for problem solving. You can do things tons of different ways. Winding order, as what it is. It's a number that says how many times a point is inside something and how many times a point is outside of something. It's really, really mathematically intense, and not very many people understand it. I don't even completely understand it, but it's useful to have. So what I'm going to do is what I need to do is there's actually a winding number SOP. So winding number, and it takes two inputs. It takes my query points and it takes my occlusion mesh. So my query points are going to be my a version of my tunic, and then my occlusion mesh is going to be my curves. Now I need to make sure that everything in here is closed, because right now if I grab these primitives, right, this isn't closed, that's not closed, that's not closed, that's not closed. None of this stuff is closed. So what I want to do, that's not closed, that's not closed, that's not closed. None of this stuff is closed. So what I want to do is I want to just fuse all this stuff back together before I do anything. Actually, no, I don't want to do a fuse. I want to do a join is what I want to do. So yeah, I want to do a join on this guy, I believe. Actually, I want to do a join on right after my, actually, I can do this. I'm going to copy this guy and I'll bring this over here. Yeah. So I want, these can't be open shapes. They need to be closed shapes. So actually, to do, this is going to be a little hairy. That's a closed shape, and then I'm going to grab this fuse and we're going to merge that together. This will become apparent hopefully in a second. So I need these merged shapes in here. So I need all this stuff to be merged. Okay, so I think that's going to be my occlusion mesh. Now my my query points. So it says query points. So this, I need to basically take this shape and I need to get the center points of all of my faces. And there's two ways that I can do this. Or actually, there's two nodes that allow me to do this. One is what's called the enumerate. So if I plug this guy in, it's got this attribute index. Now, anytime you see something called attribute, you want to pop open your... completely undestructive. Yeah, it is a completely undestructive workflow. That means that you have to do a little bit more hand cranking than just, whiz bang boom, it's already done. So what my enumerate does is it makes this attribute called index. So if I look up index here, should be a point attribute. Index. Oh, those are intrinsics. Sorry. So I should have my index. Let's see. Yeah, two primitive attributes index. Oh, sorry, it's a primitive attribute. Yeah, there it is. So index. So it's basically taking every primitive and making this index attribute, which is just the same number. Every single one of these primitives have a number. But what that allows me to do is it allows me to pull out the center point of each one of these guys with a find centroid. Or extract centroid, sorry. Extract centroid. So a centroid is just the center of something, and you can even see it in this little kind of icon here. So if I plug that in, and it says piece attribute. I don't want that to be name, and I can actually click here. I can actually say index. So what this has done, what you can see is it's made, if I template this guy, it's made a point at the center of each one of these primitives. Okay, so now I can plug this here and this into here, I believe. We should get a winding number. And instead of 3D, I'm going to do XY plane, 2D, XY plane. There we go. So I have this winding number. And this winding number goes between almost 2 and 1. So I can visualize this here. I can visualize this winding number. I'm just going to do a color. Plug that in. I'm going to view this color, and I'm going to do it's a point attribute, right? Winding number is a point attribute, and I'm going to do ramp from attribute, and that's going to be winding number, and my lowest range is going to be 1, and my highest range is going to be 2. If we look, bang, there, those two guys are lit up like Christmas. Okay, so, and I can even adjust this to get just those two pieces in the center. Okay, so this is a little confusing. This is like Houdini madness. That's what this is. Even up here, when you get into like, kind of like these crazy networks, it gets a little scary. But don't worry, you just learn it one step at a time. Okay, so what I have is I've basically converted that winding number into color. And you'll see people do this a lot because it's just easier to visualize color than just blind numbers. So now I have this C, D, R, G, and B. So if I view this, I have a CDR that's like almost all 1, or almost 0.9. And then if I keep going down, they're going to get to 0. So let's see. Right. So we can get rid of these, actually. We can delete these. Or we can also inform our actual patch here. So we can edit our patch as well before we do this reverse and all that stuff. So let's just kind of make ourselves some room here. So we're going to need a lot of room. Okay, so what we want to do, so now that we have all these points, right? We know which ones are the dart and which ones aren't, right? So if something is basically, if any of these is above any of their color is above 0, right? Because all this is black and all this is 1, we can get rid of it. If it's 0 or below, we'll keep it. So we can do that. Let's test this real quick. Let's test this real quick with a blast. So we're gonna do a blast. And so with blast, what I can say is I believe CD is greater than 0. CD dot X maybe. And this is going to be points. Yeah, there we go. So if I change this to points and I say at CD.x, I might not even have to do the .x. Yeah. So if I can say if the color, and this is probably hard to see. Let me put this. I'll make another color here so I can see this. I'll just make it red. There we go. So basically what I've done is I've said, if, you know, if that color is greater than 0, delete it, right? So that's what this blast is doing. So when I come to here, now I've deleted all that stuff in the middle. But the problem is I don't want to delete these points. I want to delete the faces up here, right? So we can see that lines up almost perfectly. Or that is actually perfect. That's perfect. So the ones that are inside, the faces that are inside the dart get ripped away. Okay? So now we have to use just a little bit of logic, right? So I know that I have in here, before I do this blast, I know I have the exact same number of points as I have in my primitives. So what I can do is I can say, if in a teeny little piece of code, I can say, if this guy is the same thing, if it's cd.r, right, or cd is greater than 0, get rid of it. So we're going to do that with a primitive wrangle. It's like one of the few times that we're going to do any kind of coding or vex or anything like that. So we're going to do a prim wrangle. I'm going to plug my patch into the first part and my colored wound points, I guess we can call them, into the second part. Cool. So now all I need to do is I just need to ask, like, which one is which. It's like, okay, they're in step. I have a primitive, and then I have a point, and I have a primitive, and I have a point, and I have a primitive, and I have a point. So what I can do is I can get my color. I can get my winding color. So I'm going to say vector wind color. So I accidentally pressed enter, so it tried to run the code before I was done writing it. Wind color equals. So there are a couple of things. I want to get the primitive number that I'm working on, because I know primitive number 0 has a winding point 0 as well, and 1 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4 and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's do this. I'm going to say, give me the point attribute coming in from the first input, or second input, so that's 0, 1. Give me CD. That's my color. And which one do I want? I want my prim num. Good, no errors. Okay, so that gives me my color. So I can do that same kind of if that I did over there. Like I can do that same condition. So I can say if my wine color dot x is let's see, that I want to keep is greater than 0. I want to remove my current primitive. Remove prim, and I think that is, I want to remove it from 0 and prim num, I believe. Let's look at the signature. Let me check out the signature for remove prim. I always forget something in that one. I don't use it that much. Geo handle, prim number. Let's see. Remove prim, 0, prim number, 1. Yeah, so I have to put this last one, that last one in there as an extra argument. Cool. So that yanks out that part. And because it's procedural and because it's Houdini, I can just replace this chunk with this chunk. And so now when I come into here, we see those holes. So if I let this play, should see just those holes be open. But I don't want those holes to be open. I want them to close. So I'm going to need some more stitching. So I'm going to do 1, 2. So that's 1, 2, 3. So I need 4 more of these. Okay. And I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to stitch. So I'm basically going to stitch this thing to itself. So that is going to go to that side. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. It's right there. Same thing. This one is going to go to this one. All right. So anytime you get like kind of like this, and let's cut this. I'm gonna hold down Y and cut that so I can see. Anytime you get like kind of like this weird kind of crisscrossy pattern, you just do a reverse, and that'll fix it. So I'm gonna do same thing here. Enter. There, and same thing here, and here. Reverse that guy. Okay, so let's plug our collision back in and see what this gives us. Yeah, that's feeling good. That's feeling good. So see how before this was like super straight? Now we're getting like this little tuck in right here. Great. So I think actually all this stuff can just get a little bit smaller in general overall. Yeah. So I think what I can do, let's see how that's draping. And this is a lot of cloth, like just being like, okay, what is my cloth doing, and how do I fix it? It's rarely ever just like a straightforward bing bang boom XYZ. This is how to fix everything. So actually, I think I can go even shorter on my side pieces. Yeah, those can go probably even shorter. So I may have to bring this whole section in a bit. All right. Yeah, so let's just bring the, I'm going to press S. I'm going to bring this whole piece inwards. Yeah. Bring this whole piece inwards. Maybe like that. And then my back piece, I'm going to do the same thing. So bring, whoa. So press S. And we'll maybe bring the whole piece in. So T, I'll bring this in. Yeah, yeah. So I think as well I can bring my darts down a bit. And maybe I can make them a little bit wider. Okay. Let's see what that does. I'm gonna press the up arrow, let that sim. Oh yeah, that's feeling way better. Yeah. Now I'm getting that. I'm getting her the curve of her body back. Yeah, that's looking good. I feel like this is too low as well. It's a little bit too plungy. Press S. And maybe bring this up. T. And actually what I'll do is I'll just shrink this whole thing and then move it back up. Yeah. Yeah, it's feeling good. I like that. I like that a lot. So maybe this is still coming in a little bit too far. I don't like how much this is coming in. So I feel like this whole thing needs to kind of come up a little, just a bit, on the front and the back. Or maybe just the inside. So it's not the workflow between this and Marvelous Designer is not, crazy different. There are a lot of similarities. It's just kind of getting used to the system that you're working in. Yeah, I like this better. This looks a little bit more utilitarian. So once we get the darts in, it works really, really well. So we're getting a little bit of pucker here. Sometimes you'll get that when your darts go too high. So, and this is what most of tailoring, like at least in my experience, most of your tailoring is going to be back and forth and back and forth. Like, oh, this is puckering, so you fix that, and then something else gets you're just constantly fixing these problems. And don't like I am not the greatest tailor ever, or by any means the greatest tailor. So if you find like someone who really, really knows how to put together clothing, pick their brain and be like, oh, send them screenshots. If you know anyone who can sew, be like, hey, I'm doing this, the cloth thing, and I do it all the time. I have a couple friends that are in the fashion industry, and I'm like, hey, this is super simple for you. Can you please help me figure out why my cloth is doing this? So maybe those are still just a little bit too big. Let's bring those down. Maybe make them a little bit shorter. Right. I think this is good. I think I'm liking this where it is right now. I had it before. Yeah, that feels like a good spot. That feels like a good spot. Okay, so let's up our resolution real quick and just see what this looks like with a little bit more resolution. So I'm gonna grab both of these guys and go 0.2. All right. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like what that's doing. I like how it's sitting here. Like we can kind of see this curve, and then this whole front thing is like one big piece, right? Because the back could be made of one type of leather, and the front can be made of another type of leather. All right. So next, I think what I want to do is she has like in the concept. She's kind of got like this big collar that comes around her neck. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to leave that for next time. Because I want to get into spitting some stuff out, spitting those shorts out to Zbrush and show you how you can put some seams in them very, very quickly. So, yeah, I think I'm liking where this is at right now. We'll start on the collar. I'll start on the collar next time. Oh, one thing you can do that I have found that's really nice is if you have like something that just really doesn't work. Like we're not actually making clothing for people here. We're making like CG stuff, and sometimes like CG clothing or like concept clothing just doesn't line up with what real world stuff is going to do. So there's a couple things you can do. You can kind of post process this a little bit to make it look a little bit better. So like I always get these kind of peaks here, which I kind of don't like sometimes. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. If I want to get rid of them, what I can do is I can use this thing called a Vellum post process. So VPP. And so this does a number of things. So if I plug in all three of these, so you can do a spatial blur on this. So I can blur this a little bit, and what it's going to do is it's going to soften everything. So you can see that. The other thing is it applies my welds. So what that does is, before this is run, before we get to this node, those welds, they're still open holes, right? You can imagine like mathematical stitching, and if I grabbed it and pulled on it hard enough, I could tear it apart. What that apply welds does is it actually makes that a cohesive piece of geometry. So if I do that, and you notice I have 3 coming in, so this is kind of like the end of simulation land when you're spitting out 1. So what I can do now is I can do a sculpt. And don't confuse this with like a ZBrush sculpt. This is very, very, very rudimentary sculpting. So what I can do is I can do a sculpt, and I can kind of just relax out this border. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say smooth points, and I'm going to turn my my strength, which is this, down, like way down, like 0.001. And I'm going to use my scroll wheel to change the size of my brush, and I'm just going to kind of just lightly tap on those spots, and I can just push them in very lightly. You have to be very careful with this, because if you go too far, you're going to push these triangles too close together. So yeah, so you can just do a little bit of post-processing after the fact. I think you can do this in the newer versions of Marvelous as well. All right. So that's our tunic. I think it's looking pretty good. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing as we did with our shorts. Okay, we're going to do the same thing we did with our shorts. Yeah. We're going to do the same thing. Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing as I did with my shorts. Sorry, I was just thinking out loud there. And I'm going to do a clean. And I'm going to remove everything except for... Now, I haven't built my UVs into this. And that's the beautiful thing about Houdini, is you can always go back and build your UVs in later. So I'm going to do... I'm going to do caret above the 6 UVs when I actually have them, and I want that detail, which was, I always forget what it is. It's VM cusp angle. VM cusp angle, underscore cusp angle. Okay. And then we'll do an out tunic, a null. Okay, so if we go all the way out, deselect that. So now we have our tunic and we have our shorts. Now our tunic is, maybe we can even go a little bit. We can even go a little bit lower on the simulation. So let's go back up to here. And maybe 0.05. Ooh, that might be too much. let's see. Yeah, I mean, Houdini. Maybe to make it more tight on those areas, you could try curving the sewing segment on the sides. I think that could fight against the tube look on the sides. Just guessing, not a tailor. Yeah, that is a way to do it. I find doing curves on the sides of things. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can get like very strange kind of buckling. Actually, we could try that as well. Yeah, that's a very good way. Like, because basically at that point you're basically removing this space here instead of this space back here. That's another way to do it. The other way you could do it is like if you're trying to make like in guys, and when you're doing clothing for men, there's usually like a taper in the entire thing that goes here, because in general guys are much wider in their shoulders than they are on their hips, so you can just taper both. You can basically bring both of these in like that. So that is a way to do it. Yeah, Marvelous. Yeah, this is way too low. This is like super dense. So maybe we'll go 0.9. Let's see. 1.5. What am I viewing? So you need a what we're seeing is this is my sculpt, right? So I'm gonna have to redo my sculpt. So the sculpt is always like the very last thing you do before you do anything else. Let's go. Yeah. Let's get rid of that, and we'll go back up. Let's make sure I got the right 0.015. Let's maybe 0.02. That's too much. I'm Goldilocksing right now. Yeah, 1.5 feels good. So we'll run that and see what we get. Yeah, that's good. I like that. And I can do another sculpt in there if I need to at the very last minute. The one thing that I do really miss in Houdini that Marvelous Designer has is that ability to like pick and pull your cloth like as you're tailoring it. That functionality is, I think that functionality is what makes Marvelous Designer. Being able to, pull the cloth and interactively play with it and see how it works and like pull it off the character and stuff as it's simulating. That is like, I haven't seen any other piece of software like be able to do that. So that's pretty cool. But you get what you pay for, right? So let me hit escape here. There we go. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did with my shorts as well. I'm going to come up to my vellum drape. I'm going to say, let's freeze this at frame. I want that tunic to chill out. Let's do 170. And I'll freeze it there. So it basically just stays. The other thing is I'm going to make a disk cache of this. And so the thing I did here is I just took, and I always want to know what frame something is coming from. If I'm grabbing a sim frame, I want to know where it's coming from. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say copy parameter, and I'm going to say in here, I'm going to say paste relative reference. So whatever this is set at, this will reflect in the file name. So I'm going to say save to disk. And if I look there, so there's my cloth, right? So there's 16 and 170, and I'll say load from disk. So yeah, so now we have our tunic. Let's collapse this guy. Let's collapse this guy. Yeah. So now we have our shorts and our tunic on our character. I think Clo 3D has it too. I think all Marvelous Designer and Clo 3D are made by the same company. So I think you could do that in Clo 3D as well. There's a lot of other kind of cloth simulators that are coming out. There's another one called Browseware that's getting really popular. The fashion industry is really coming around to using CG in their pipelines and for their work. So yeah. Yeah, I'm sharing my software and not the screen, and I am trying to work on. I'm trying to troubleshoot on why my extra dialogues aren't coming up, because Houdini does have a fair bit of them, but most of the brunt of what I'm doing, I mean, you can infer, and that's why why I'm also saying everything I'm typing. So I'm working on that. Yeah, so let me give these some color just so we can get a good idea of what things are looking like. Let's so I don't need this clip in here. That was for my halvesies. That's gonna go away. This can come into here, so that should give my shorts some color. Come out. Oh, I'm deleting my color with my clean. There we go. So my clean was blowing away my color attribute, so I need to put my color attribute after my clean. And that's just for visualization in here, just so I can see kind of like a bigger picture. Yeah. So we'll do the same for the tunic. So after the clean, we'll just drop in that color. All right, color. And we'll give this a kind of like a light tan. Yeah, we're gonna put those on points, come back out. Yeah, so it just kind of gives us an idea of what stops where. When everything's kind of gray, it's hard to see. Oh, okay, yeah. And then just for the body, for the collision, I'll do color as well. Okay, yeah, that's feeling pretty good. I like that. I like where this is going. Okay. So, in this last, maybe about a half an hour left, I'll show how we can take the shorts, because I'm still kind of working on the tunic. Let me save this before something goes horribly wrong. Yeah. X. 2. And something has gone horribly wrong. Let's see. Let's go grab. Hip name, BGO, that was 170. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we save stuff to disk. Because things that are in the sim are always volatile. So that's 16. Okay. All right. Cool. So here are our pants, and we actually haven't welded together our pants. There's no Vellum post process on this one. I can put one in there, but I don't think I need it for the pants at this very moment. So I'm going to go over to Zbrush. Yeah, I'm going to go over to Zbrush. So saving stuff out of Houdini is actually pretty easy. You just right-click on the node that you want to spit out, and you say Save Geometry. There are more sophisticated ways to do it, but for what we're doing here, we'll use that. So I'm going to call this. I'm going to put this in. Let's see. I'm going to put this. Oh, we'll just put it on the outside here of with my hip file. Actually, no. We'll call this Geo. And I'll call this shorts example .obj. And let that write out. Okay, so I'm going to pop over to Zbrush real quick. All right, so I'm in Zbrush, and I'm going to bring in those shorts that I just exported out as an OBJ. So I'm going to say import, and I'm going to go to my Java and my shorts example. I'm going to pull these out, press T. Okay, so in Zbrush, right, we can see we have exactly the same topology. Nothing's welded together. I think if I pull BM topological, if I pull one part of this, yeah. So none of this is welded together, right? So it's all just kind of strips floating in space, which is what I want, because I want to do go to polygroups, and I'm going to go to auto groups. So that will make each patch of this into its own group. So I can keep doing this and do like a whole disco thing. Okay, the next thing I want to do is inside of Zbrush, I want to weld all this stuff together. Okay, so I'm going to go to, actually, let me duplicate this guy, just in case. Okay. So I'm going to weld all this stuff together. So I'm going to say, where am I at? So I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, and then I'm going to go to Weld Points. So now if I do Move Topological on this, right, that's all welded together. Now, the secret to this is, now that's kind of the secret to this welding, and I'll show you why here in a second. So now, once I have this welded together, now I want to run ZRemesher. Let's see, ZRemesher, and I want to turn on Keep Groups. So that'll keep the groups as they are. And let's see, I don't want to, let's do target poly count. My current poly count, my active points is around, total points is around 18,000. My active points is 80, so let's do 10. Well, we'll do 15. 15,000 target points. I want to turn down my adaptive because I want most of my squares to be square. Like I don't want it to like make long triangles. And what else? Yeah, so let's run this and see what we get. Ooh, smooth polygroups. I'll usually turn that down to 0 as well. So run this. And voila, there we go. We have this really, really nice geometry. It's working very, very well. Now, it looks like the cuffs of the pants disappeared. That's not, they're still there. Like you can kind of see the inside of them. This is a one-sided piece of polygon, so I can just turn on, if I go to display properties, I can turn on double, and then we'll see the other side. So this is really, really nice topology to work on. Now I'm getting like this little kind of crinkle here. I can kind of try to smooth that out a little bit and run this again. And same here, I can smooth this out just a bit and run ZRemesher again. Where is it? Where is it? Geometry and ZRemesher. I'm gonna run that again. Now, I've tried running this with X symmetry on, and sometimes, and I'm not really sure why, because this is kind of a new workflow. Sometimes it just doesn't work. It's like, no. And then sometimes it'll put like this weird creases in the back here. So let's turn on our X symmetry and see what our ZRemesher does. Sometimes it'll just fail. Yeah, remeshing error occurred, encountered, remeshing aborted. Yeah, so I'm not really sure why that happens when you have X symmetry turned on, but it's something to deal with. So we'll just do that again. You can also hold down Alt and click ZRemesher, and it'll do like an alternate. It'll do an alternate ZRemesh. You can also try the legacy. Actually, in this case, the legacy works way better. Yeah, so sometimes when you run X symmetry, it's doing this, and I'm not really sure why. So, but anyway, so this is what we get, which is nice. So now we have this nice polygon geometry that's very good to sculpt with, and we can do like now it's like we have. I mean, the world's your oyster. Once you're back into ZBrush, you can do so many things, right? So this doesn't. Once you run ZRemesher, it blows away your UV data, so you can rebuild that quite quickly. So let's go to our UV map. So if you don't have this morph UV, it means your UVs are gone. But what I can do is I can go into Z plugin and I can do UV master. Where is it? Do UV master, and I can say unwrap using my polygroups. So I can say unwrap. So that'll run. Now my morph UV is available. And boom. Let's turn off that bump. And so now I have these nice flat UVs. Now you could spit this back out into Maya, you could spit it back out into Houdini, and you can move them around so that they make more sense. But the point is that if I were to put a texture on this, like let's put this, where's it? There's a checker in here somewhere. Where's that checker? Texture 19. Yeah. So this is really, really clean UVs. Very little stretching. They're kind of going in all sorts of different directions, but you can edit that in an external package. But like this is amazing. This is really, really good. Really, really wonderful. So I'm gonna turn that off. Okay. The other thing that we can do is we can use these polygroups as seams. Okay. So this is another little trick that we can do. This is a great little trick. So I'm going to go to my subtool. I'm going to duplicate this guy again. So let's see. This is... Okay. And once you go back to that nice order, this seems really crazy when you look at it again. So I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this try... We'll call this sim mesh. We'll put that on top. And we'll call this remesh. And I'm going to duplicate this one more time. And I'll call this one seams. And the reason I'm calling this one seams is because I'm going to put seams on this guy. So I'm going to come down to modify topology. Or no, not modify, just the geometry. And I'm going to come to edge loops. And I'm going to edge loop by group. And I don't want to polish this at all. I just want to put 4 edge loops. Maybe I'll do 5. I think 4 will work. I'm going to put 4 edge loops. And if I turn on... Yeah, so if I have edge loops, it's going to put a edge loop around here, around there, and around there, which will make really nice seams. So I'm going to do edge loops here. And we can see, if we get really close, that it not only has put an edge loop around each one, it's also very nicely polygrouped it for us. Okay. So what I can do with this polygroup now is I can hold Control and Shift, can view just those edge seams, and this is actually really cool with like some of the new stuff that's coming out in 2021. So you can replace this with like weaving or something, or like stitches. Like actually really cool. So I'm gonna mask all of this, Control and Shift, bring back everything, and then flop my mask. So just that little strip is being exposed. And then I'll come down here to deformation, and I'll just deflate that little bit in. So I'll just do inflate. That's too much. So if I want to pull it out, I can pull it out. If I can push it in, I can push it in. There's also inflate balloon, which always just breaks everything for me. I don't know why. But I usually use inflate. So I can do inflate and pull that in just a bit. And when I pull out, if I unhide everything and I turn off my polyframe, I get like this really nice seam line. Now the problem is, and the reason I made this duplicate, and now you can do whatever you can do. You can sculpt on this and do whatever you need to. Like, so if you wanted this line, so this line is a little ragged, but it's cloth, so it's going to go back and forth anyway. But if you wanted to move that line around, you could. The problem is when you do that edge loop, it doesn't care about those nice UVs we made. So what I do is I make my seams, and then on my on this one, the one with no edge loops, this guy, so I'll subdivide him like 3 times. So Control D, 1, 2, 3. Subdivide that about 3 times. So I have about 4 subdivisions here. And what I'll do is then I will project this mesh onto my seamed mesh. So I have both of them visible. I'm going to go to project, and we'll say project all. If we hide our sim mesh, we get those seams back. So now I can go through and I can use I already have my move topological brush, so I can say, make this a little bit bigger. And if I wanted to accentuate CBMV, so I can pull these to the left or the right if I need to. Turn off my X symmetry. So now I can really start to make this look like cloth, and it's not like super straight all the time. All right, the other thing I can do is I could so yeah, this is, and now it's just like straight sculpting. You could use stitch brushes on this. You can use IMM brushes on this. You could use curve brushes on this. It's really fun technique. It gets you really far really fast. I really enjoy it. You could use this technique. This isn't just for stuff coming out of Houdini. You could use this for stuff coming out of Marvelous or Clo or whatever other software that you're using to generate your cloth. What else could we do this? We could pinch these together if we wanted them to be a little bit tighter. Oh, that's too strong. Still too strong. So I just pinch, just gently pinch, pull that together so it's a little bit more defined. Especially these junction areas can get pinched together a little bit. Advice on hand sculpting folds. Yeah, that generally you're gonna have to start to sculpt. You're gonna have to sculpt in the folds by hand. The sim is just to get you like part of the way there, especially if you're doing something for 3D print or something that's going to be static, something that's not going to be moving. Yeah, you're going to have to hand sculpt your folds in. I would suggest looking at just like a lot of reference. That's what I do, like just using, like coming into using reference, and then the same way that you would build a, start sculpting a person's face or a body, you start with your big sculpt, you start with your big forms, you do your big wrinkles first, and then you start to move down and down and down and start to do finer and finer wrinkles. I studied, I looked at a lot of J.C. Leindecker's work, Norman Rockwell's work. He has beautiful, beautiful folds. Yeah, look at real life. When I say reference, I mean real life reference. Grab some cloth, crinkle it up, throw it over something, stretch it, see what it looks like, and take pictures of it, and then try to copy it. There's really no magic formula. There's no magic brush for doing pretty much anything. They can make things easier, but in the long run, like, they're not really doing much. You're really the artist. So yeah, reference. I think is going to be your best friend. It's a good question. So yeah, that's how you would take a sculpt, or that's how you would take a sim out of your simulation package, and that's how you would put it into ZBrush and detail it. Like, so at this point, like, you can use all those tricks that in ZBrush. You can use inflate brushes. Like I said, you can use, there's tons of brushes out there that you can download and play with and pick apart and figure out how they work. This is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, but I find that this kind of workflow works very, very well for me, especially coming from a pipeline point of view. If this is my kind of like my render mesh, I can spit that back out, and I can still use that sim mesh to kind of drag this thing along after my character comes back from animation. So you're starting from a place of reality, you're moving to detail in kind of a little bit of fantasy, and then you're coming back to that simulation information at animation time, or after animation time, and at render time. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this stream. You can look me up at cgspectrum.com. You can hit me up on my email. You can find on the website. And I hope you all have a good night. And I'll see you next week.